"I'm gone," that's what her note said. "I'm gone and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner." Those were the last words my wife ever spoke to me. Not "I love you," not "take care of yourself." Just an apology that made no sense, whispered by a woman who'd barely looked me in the eye for 2 years. I stood beside Claudia's casket, 57 years of her life folded into a box, and I didn't understand any of it. Not then, not for a long time after. At the funeral, a man in a gray suit found me. Douglas Sinclair, one of Claudia's colleagues. He pressed a manila envelope into my hands. "She was very specific about the timing," he said, then lowered his voice. "She also said to tell you, trust no one but yourself." Inside the envelope was an old savings passbook, the kind banks stopped issuing decades ago. Heritage Community Bank, faded gold letters, a date from 1988. My daughter Natalie glanced at it and laughed. "Mom never had money, Dad." "Whatever's in there is probably empty." She said it kindly enough that I almost believed her. Almost. Across the chapel, my younger daughter Hannah stood alone by the wall, small and quiet, the way she'd been most of her life since Natalie learned to fill every room first. Later that day, at the house full of mourners and casserole dishes, I watched through the kitchen window as Natalie, efficient, graceful, tidying up, picked up that passbook, glanced at it one more time, and dropped it into the trash. She pushed it under some paper towels. Then she walked out to the driveway where a tall, smooth-talking man was waiting. "Did you get it?" he asked. "It's done, it's garbage." "Good." "Your old man doesn't suspect anything." I stood frozen on my own porch. Through the glass, I saw Hannah come in from the living room, stare into that trash can, then look up and meet my eyes. She looked terrified, then she turned and walked away. I didn't sleep that night. At 4:30 in the morning, 58 years old, I found myself kneeling on my kitchen floor, digging through garbage for the truth my wife couldn't give me while she was alive. I pulled the passbook out, wiped off the coffee grounds, and sat under the stove light to read it. Claudia Coleman Walsh. Account opened March 15th, 1988, 2 years after Natalie was born, back when we were eating spaghetti 3 nights a week because that's what we could afford. Page after page of small, disciplined deposits, $50 here, $100 there for 37 years. And on the last page, stamped in red ink, 7 lines, unauthorized access attempt. 7 of them spanning nearly a year, the last one just 2 weeks before she died. Someone had been trying to break into my dead wife's secret account. And she'd known, she'd said nothing. I read her note again. "Go to Heritage Community Bank, ask for Warren Shields. Trust no one but yourself." I was standing outside those doors before they opened. Warren Shields turned out to be the branch director, gray-haired, careful, expecting me. He pulled Claudia's account up on his screen and turned the monitor toward me. Current balance, $3,047,612.83. I stared at the number until it stopped meaning anything. "She made regular deposits for 37 years, Warren said gently. "Small amounts, consistent. The compound interest did the rest. 3 years ago," he told me, "she'd quietly added me as joint holder, so that if anything happened to her, I'd have immediate access, no delays." Right around the same time, the unauthorized access attempts had started. He slid a folder across the desk. Security footage. 7 photographs, 7 different dates, 7 different outfits, and every single time the same face. Natalie. "She tried 6 times to withdraw funds with a forged power of attorney," Warren said. "The 7th time, she tried to remove you as beneficiary and add herself. That was 3 weeks before your wife passed. Every time, the bank system had called Claudia to verify. Every time, she declined to press charges. She told them she'd handle it herself. Then he handed me a key, a safe deposit box waiting for me the moment I walked in. Inside that vault, I found 5 years of journals, Claudia's quiet, secret war. She discovered Natalie forging her signature back in 2020 and written it all down rather than confront her. Because, in her words, he would never believe his golden child is a thief. She was right. I wouldn't have. The journals unraveled everything. The dinner 3 years earlier when Hannah tried to tell me Natalie owed her $20,000, and I'd called Hannah jealous and written Natalie a check for $30,000 more. The 2 years Claudia grew cold and distant, and Natalie whispered to each of us that the other was pulling away, driving a wedge between my wife and me, while I never once suspected my own daughter of engineering our silence. $250,000 borrowed from me over 5 years, never repaid, and an $80,000 debt of Hannah's quietly paid off by Claudia, never explained. My phone rang. Hannah, breathless, "Dad, I need to talk to you about Natalie and about Derek." We met at Washington Park. Derek, she told me, was the boyfriend who'd convinced her 3 years ago to invest $80,000 in a fake real estate deal. Money Natalie had personally vouched for. When Derek vanished, Hannah spent 2 years secretly drowning in debt, working herself to exhaustion, too ashamed and too disbelieved to ask for help again. 8 months ago, the loan was mysteriously paid off in full. Now she knew why. Claudia again, saving her daughter in silence. And there was more. Hannah had spent 3 years digging. Derek Samuel Morrison had a record, elder fraud convictions in Florida and Arizona. Women who'd helped him and gone to prison while he walked free every single time. He'd arrived in Colorado and in Natalie's life right on schedule. And in Claudia's emails, dated the very day she died, was a message from Derek to Natalie. "The old lady's gone now. We just need to get rid of the passbook. He'd been waiting for my wife to die." We went to the police. Detective Rebecca Stone read the journals, studied the bank footage, and made note of 3 more names, elderly victims Natalie had defrauded during her time as a care coordinator. Evelyn Tucker, Raymond Fisher, Irene Fletcher, Claudia's own neighbor and friend. This wasn't family drama, Rebecca told me. This was organized, patient, and it had gone on for years. 2 days later, I stood across the street and watched officers arrest my daughter in her driveway. She looked at me like I was her last hope. I read her mother's own words back to her, a journal entry where Claudia overheard Natalie say the old woman needed to hurry up and die. Natalie's face went the color of ash. "You're not my daughter anymore," I told her. "My daughter died the day she chose money over her mother." The trial took weeks. I sat on the witness stand and read Claudia's final letter aloud to a jury of strangers. Her explanation, her apology, her warning that Natalie wasn't working alone. Evelyn, Raymond, and Irene gave their impact statements, 3 elderly people describing exactly how my daughter had taken what little they had. The jury found her guilty on all 10 counts. 6 years in federal prison, full restitution. "I hope you're happy, Dad," Natalie said as they led her away. "I'm not happy," I told her. "But your mother finally is." Derek was gone by then, vanished the moment the arrest warrant was signed. It would take the FBI another year to find him. A wire transfer to a girlfriend in Phoenix led them to a condo in Cabo San Lucas. When they finally caught him, the truth was worse than we'd imagined. 12 families across 6 states, 7 women used the same way Natalie had been used, $8.7 million stolen in total. One of those women had died by suicide in prison. At his arraignment, Derek looked straight at me and smiled. "Your wife was smart," he said, "smarter than all of them. She was the only one who saw through me before I could run." 3 months later, a jury convicted him on all 17 counts. 18 years, no parole. Claudia hadn't just protected our family. She'd stopped him before he could find his next one. Grief doesn't end, it just changes shape. 8 months after the trial, Hannah and I opened the doors of the Claudia Coleman Foundation for Elder Protection. 3 small rooms in Capitol Hill, soft blue walls. Claudia's photographs smiling down from every corner. Evelyn, Raymond, and Irene stood beside us at the ribbon cutting, not as victims anymore, but as advisors. Rebecca Stone spoke about how rarely financial abuse gets reported, how most victims never find anyone who believes them. I stood in front of that small crowd and told them the truth. My wife saved $3 million in secret over 37 years. When our daughter tried to steal it, Claudia didn't confront her. She documented her patiently for 5 years until the case was airtight. She died before she saw justice. But she left us everything we needed to finish what she started. And now that money was going to protect the kind of people Natalie and Derek had once seen as easy targets. Within 8 months, we'd helped 54 people. Within 18 months, that number passed 150, with over $1 million recovered and 8 states adopting our model. A letter arrived from Natalie, eventually. Careful handwriting, just like her mother's. She wrote that she was in therapy, taking classes, that she'd finally read her mother's journals and understood, too late, what real love had looked like all along. She didn't ask me to visit. I read it 3 times, folded it, and put it in a drawer. I didn't answer. Not yet. Every Wednesday, I visit Claudia's grave. I tell her about the foundation, the numbers. The lives were changing with the money she spent a lifetime quietly saving. I tell her I'm sorry it took losing everything to finally see the truth she was trying to protect me from. 18 months after I found that passbook in the trash, I sat on a bench in Washington Park with Hannah beside me, rocking a stroller. Inside it, wrapped in a pink blanket, was my granddaughter, Claudia Grace Walsh, her mother's nose, maybe her mother's stubbornness too. She would have loved her so much, I said. Hannah squeezed my hand. She'd be proud of both of us. My wife chose truth over comfort, and it cost her everything while she was alive. But in the end, that same truth was the only thing that saved us. It always is. Some people call that a tragedy. I call it the last, best gift she ever gave me, and I'll spend whatever years I have left making sure it was worth it.